I'll be doing very minor views of Luther, but at some point I will be discussing Luther and the Nazis, and they go hand in glove, sadly. You have no idea how bad it was with Luther. So, now they are worshipping what they call positive Christianity, not negative Christianity. If you're wondering what negative Christianity is, it's what you believe, right? So, positive Christianity was a very vague plank of the original 25-point program of the NSDAP, that's the Nazis, right? Positive Christianity was an attempt to create a new state religion by uniting Protestant sects into a single church. Notice he didn't say Catholic. Its doctrine proclaimed that Christ was an Arian. It downplayed or eliminated the Old Testament because the Old Testament is too Jewish. In fact, the Old Testament had to be removed completely. So, it attempted to shoehorn themes of a struggle between the Arians and the Jews into the New Testament. They created their own New Testament, the Nazis, with their, and sadly, Protestant theologians that they hired, who was sympathetic to the Nazi regime. They wrote their own version of the New Testament. Its ideas were never clearly elucidated. It never caught on in any significant fashion. But the term positive Christianity originally indicated a secular and a non-denominational but vaguely pro-Christian attitude on the part of the Nazis, which to me is disturbing because so many Christians claim to be non-denominational. Well, the Nazis had a non-denominational Christianity too. I would rather not be associated with something of that nature. Pick a side. Get off the fence. Right? Hitler as Messiah and his new religion. So, efforts to impose a Nazified positive Christianity on a state-controlled German evangelical church failed, fortunately. This failure resulted in the formation of the Dissident Confessing Church, which saw great danger to Germany from the new religion. They call it a new religion. The Catholic Church denounced the Creed's blood and soil ideology in the 1937 papal encyclical Mit brennender Sorge, with burning anxiety. Hitler privately assured General Gerd Engel. Now, it should be noted that at that time, the military leading class, the ruling class within the military, were generally very conservative and generally very religious. So he privately assured General Gerd Engel in 1941 that I am now as before a Catholic and will always remain so. The official Nazi ideologist Alfred Rosenberg played an important role in the development of positive Christianity, which he conceived in opposition to the Catholic Church and also to the Protestant churches, and these doctrines he called negative Christianity. His servant, non-denominational, spineless, or too flexible. It's a concern. You need to pick a side. You need to choose what you believe in. So Hitler is known for his rejection of and hatred for Christianity, as is Alfred Rosenberg. Mit brennender Sorge, with burning anxiety. So briefly on this. This is written in German, specifically for the Germans. Typically, such a papal encyclical is written in Latin. It was written by Pope Pius XI to the German bishops in 1937, expressing his concerns about the Nazi regime's treatment of the Catholic Church in Germany. It emphasizes the importance of upholding religious duty and education, defending the truth and maintaining faith in God during times of persecution, because these were times of church persecution. Just realize the positive and negative dynamic screams dialectics. That's from Jordan Schmidt, and that's actually a very good point. Yes, I've mentioned, and I do touch on in this talk, on the Gnostic aspects of their belief. They are certainly Gnostics. Yes, but that is true. You've got this positive and negative. You do have the Gnostic dynamic. Right. So, he urges the faithful to show heroism and be generous in suffering, to face the oppressors of the church with the strength of their faith and charity. He also emphasizes that every true and lasting reform is ultimately sprung from the sanctity of men who were driven by the love of God and of men. The Pope stresses that faith in the Church cannot stand pure and true without the support of faith in the primacy of the Bishop of Rome. He also sends words of gratitude and commendation to those who suffer persecution and to all those imprisoned in jail and in concentration camps. Finally, he addresses Catholic parents, urging them to sever their responsibilities from the opposite camp and free their conscience from guilty cooperation with such corruption. The Nazis raided and confiscated the letter. His servant, Hitler was against Protestant Christianity. However, he found a certain, shall we say, allyship within Protestant Christianity. There was a certain overlap and a certain sympathy. So sadly, Actually, let me see if I can find something before I... Actually, yeah, we're going to get there in a moment. So let me just continue and I will get there. So the claim is that the Catholic Church collaborated. Now, if someone puts a gun to your head or someone holds your family hostage and they say, but you collaborated, were you willingly collaborating? Were you trying to find a non-violent solution because you did not have the power? You got 100 men with guns pointing them at your head. How much power do you have? How much negotiating power do you have? You have to go along with it. Stalin once said, there's the whole claim that someone mentioned to Stalin about Jesus Christ and the power of God. And then Stalin apparently said to this person, how many divisions does Jesus have? Because the church, oddly enough, in 1937 didn't have an army and couldn't send an army into Germany to fight against Hitler. But they collaborated. In 1933, the Catholic Church signed a Concordat, a pact, with the Reich government in Germany to secure the freedom of the Church's mission and protect the faithful from potential trials and difficulties. However, the Nazis repeatedly violated the agreement, revealing their true intentions of a war of extermination against Jews, Christians, and other groups. Despite the Church's efforts to warn Germany's rulers of the consequences of supporting such policies, the Nazis disregarded the Concordat. The Church remained committed to defending violated rights and opposing policies that sought to strangle rights guaranteed by the treaty. However, it was mindful of potential consequences of taking drastic action, of offending Hitler to the point where Hitler took drastic action and started slaughtering people in even greater numbers. They sought to avoid any actions that would bring harm to the faithful. They are caught in a very tough position. If they say too much, if they do too much, they are not in a position to defend the lives of millions of Christians whose lives are now at risk. Many have accused the Catholic Church of collaborating with the Nazis during this time, but this claim is false. The Church did not support the Nazis' policies and actively worked to defend the rights of the faithful and oppose the Nazis' actions. In fact, they worked subversively where they could. But the history of this story is much more complex than presented, with mostly speculation over fact. I would recommend you have a look here, Hitler and the Vatican, inside the secret archives that reveal the new story of the Nazis and the Church. This is a very complex story. There's a lot more going on here.